So I wanted to talk a little bit about self-compassion and self-love. These are two qualities that I think are very important, at least in my experience, to cultivate. And I think that self-compassion and self-love are the foundation for which our human evolution will be built upon. And the foundation from which we'll be able to offer compassion and love to others. And I think compassion, before we can talk about compassion, I think we need to talk a little bit about empathy. And from my perspective, empathy is the ability to feel your emotions and to feel other people's emotions. And, if you're like me, growing up, I was in the habit I learned to repress emotions. They felt too overwhelming, too scary, and I didn't consciously know that at the time. Looking back, I can see that now. But I would, something would happen and that emotion. And I remember the day that, one particular experience, someone made a comment about me, and I remember just like disconnecting. I just like wasn't there. And I thought that was, wow, I found the solution. Like I just was disassociated, almost like out of the body, because that way the comment couldn't hurt me. And I thought, wow, I can use this all the time. So I learned to repress, distract, avoid feelings that just were too scary, too overwhelming. I just didn't know how to process it. I didn't have a conceptual framework back then like I have now. And I would turn to blame. Many of us do this. We blame other people. We blame ourselves. Many of us turn to drugs and alcohol, other addictive behaviors to distract from the discomfort of the emotion. So, part of my process on my journey, and with a lot of work with the teacher and others, is allowing the emotions to come up and experiment with being with the emotion. And I had to do it little by little at first, but now I kind of sometimes enjoy doing it. So the first step for me was looking within. So a lot of times we're looking out at the other person or the circumstance or the situation. But for me, it was important to look within. And so if I felt, anger, that might be the surface emotion, then I might ask myself, is there anything beneath the anger? Is the anger protecting anything? Or is the fear protecting anything? The anger might be protecting the fear, or the fear might be there, but what is the fear about? Maybe I'm feeling less than, not good enough, so I'm protecting that. I don't want to, let that emotion in, and so that reaction to protect is part of my survival mechanism. We all have this primal part that reacts when it feels threatened or feels in danger. So as a child, I developed this, around certain emotions. So, working with a teacher and talking about this and practicing looking within, and over and over and over, I'm now able to go into these emotions, let them be there, feel them fully, invite them in, and it helps to breathe into the emotion and then find a place in the body that it's anchored in the body. It could be in your shoulders, it could be in your diaphragm, it could be in your stomach, and put some attention there. Now the attention, the attention directed at where the emotion's being held in the body, and just the attention directed inwardly, that's the compassion, that's self-compassion, that's love. So an analogy is if you have a crying, like I do, 4-year-old, and she's having a tantrum or she's feeling sad and upset, and I go to her And on a good day, I give her attention without judgment and criticism. I give her the space to express what she needs to express at the time. I try to provide a environment that's safe for her to experience her emotional self. You know, that it's not a bad thing. The message I'm trying to give to her is these emotions are not a bad thing. It's okay to feel this. It's okay. Now, I don't always get that right. You know, if I'm not addressing my own emotions, then, and if I'm in a reactive state, then I might not be there for her. And it can be harmful to her, you know, and it can be harmful to other. It's easier with kids to do this than, you know, for me at least, because there's a feeling of safety with kids and animals. It may be harder with adults, and relationships are a perfect example. You know, they really act as a mirror, at least that's been my case. And through a lot of pain and suffering, you know, for me, I've been kind of forced to look at this stuff, and very grateful and appreciative for that. Because when it's like discovering a whole new world, when you begin to explore these emotions and where it's held in the body, and when that begins to relax and you don't feel so overwhelmed all the time, that is a result from looking within. And you know, the process has been a invaluable asset in my life. I'm very grateful for that. So that's the self-compassion. Now, if we're able to give self-compassion and love through attention and being patient with the emotion, being patient with the tension or the contraction in the body, you know, through, you know, my teacher would always say, just, you know, we're not trying to make it go away, you know, just giving it attention and being curious about it, you know. So that's been very helpful for me. And I think that it's the ground from which compassion towards others can happen in an authentic way. Because when we're compassionate towards ourselves, then we can be compassionate towards others. For example, if someone else comes to me and I'm sensing anger, or, you know, and I'm saying, oh, they're being so insecure and just being so, I'm labeling them, I'm blaming, I'm getting into the blame game, then usually, you know, I may not do it at the time, but after the situation, I may review and look within myself and say, is this anger? Is this insecurity? Is it out there, or is it within me? You know, and maybe sometimes it's with them, but if there's a resistance and a judgment, then it's usually something that's going on with me. And then I need to address it and, you know, spend some time with it and be with it. And, you know, and from that place, then it's only then I can offer it to others. And sometimes if I'm in a situation where I'm having a conversation with someone and it comes up, the best I could, you know, I keep some attention here and some attention on them. And hopefully if I'm being compassionate and being vulnerable, I could be there for the other person. I'm not always, you know, I'm nowhere near perfect at this. I react a lot of times. You know, I get defensive sometimes. Because that's my go-to. That's what I learned as a child. So, but there's been gradual progress. It's been gradual and it's been noticeable, and I really appreciate that. That's why I'm sharing this with you. And I think it's so important right now, because I think we're moving from a power and money-based culture, society that's driven from power and money, to a compassionate-based culture and society. And as we make this transition, I think it's important to learn how to develop self-compassion and to be with these emotions and to be with these sensations. I think it's so important, and it's going to be such an asset to this world. And I'm really excited because I feel like we're moving in that direction. So